going to the bathroom on the street, you don't see junkies.
It's very nice, isn't it?
Very different from our cities.
Yep. Well, no, some of our cities.
Some of our cities, but New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they've got a major problem with.
It's very sad.
With filth.
Very sad.
Why is that?
It's a phenomenon that started 2 years ago. It's disgraceful. I'm going to maybe, and I'm looking at it very seriously. We're doing some other things, as you probably noticed, like some of the very important things that we're doing now. But we're looking at it very seriously because you can't do that. You can't have what's happening where police officers are getting sick just by walking the beat. I mean, they're getting actually very sick. Where people are getting sick, where the people living there are living in hell, too, although some of them have mental problems where they don't even know they're living that way. In fact, perhaps they like living that way. They can't do that. We cannot ruin our cities. And you have people that work in those cities. They work in office buildings, and to get into the building, they have to walk through a scene that nobody would have believed possible 3 years ago. And this is the liberal establishment. This is what I'm fighting. I don't know if they're afraid of votes. I don't know if they really believe that this should be taking place. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And we may be, I had a situation when I first became president. We had certain areas of Washington, D.C. where that was starting to happen. And I ended it very quickly. I said, you can't do that. When we have leaders of the world coming in to see the President of the United States and they're riding down a highway, they can't be looking at that. I really believe that it hurts our country. They can't be looking at scenes like you see in Los Angeles and San Francisco. San Francisco, I own property in San Francisco, so I don't care, except it was so beautiful. And now areas that you used to think as being, really something very special, you take a look at what's going on with San Francisco. It's terrible. So we're looking at it very seriously. We may intercede. We may do something to get that whole thing cleaned up. It's inappropriate. Now, we have to take the people and do something. We have to do something.
Right.
And, we're really not very equipped as a government to be doing that kind of work. That's not really the kind of work that the government probably should be doing. We've never had this in our lives before in our country. And it's not only those few cities, it's a couple of other cities also.
Of cities.
At the same time, most of our cities are doing great. But if you look at some of these, they're usually sanctuary cities run by very liberal people, and the states are run by very liberal people. But the thing that nobody can figure out is, do these governors or mayors, do they really think this is a positive? Do they really think this is okay? Because it's not. It's destroying their city. And it's destroying a whole way of life. And it's not our country. It's not what our country is all about.
Okay. This is Trump during an interview with Tucker Carlson, claiming, among other things, that homelessness started 2 years ago. Only, I'm not sure what Trump stands to gain by this claim, which I'm assuming was just the result of some errant synapse firing, and then he said it and went with it, and then Tucker Carlson nodded along, and here we have two full-grown adult men literally playing pretend with each other on national television. First off, if homelessness started 2 years ago, the event that this phenomenon coincides with is Trump's election. The guy is basically saying, things have never been this bad since the day I took office. And look, to give credit where it's due, he isn't wrong. Now, what I assume Trump is trying to do with the accuracy of a 7-year-old trying to hit a piñata in the dark is pin homelessness on Democrats. And while homelessness is an issue in cities, it's not a political one. Democrats have to contend with this issue because Democrats generally run cities, where homelessness is uniquely an issue because of population density. In other words, Republicans don't even have the opportunity to tackle homelessness because their politics are so bad that they can't get elected in cities. So it's not like Republicans have figured it out and solved homelessness, because low population density in the areas they govern makes homelessness a non-issue for them. Their politics being so bad that they can't get elected in a high-density area doesn't get them bragging rights. Because, let's just be honest here, if anyone thinks that Republicans would more effectively solve the issue of homelessness than Democrats, if anyone really thinks that the party whose sole mission is to cut spending on anyone not in the top 1%, then you're kidding yourself. If Trump and Republicans are so worried about homelessness, they might want to look into programs that actually help people, instead of catering exclusively to the rich and powerful. Like, for example, one thing that might help people not live on the streets is, A system where everyone has universal access to affordable health care? I mean, it is staggering the extent to which Trump is complaining about a problem without even bothering to look at its root causes. It's like if he left the stove on 24 hours a day and then complained that the fire department wasn't coming quickly enough to put the constant fires out. I'm no pyrotechnics expert, but maybe the problem isn't the fire department. It's telling, too, that for Trump, the issue isn't homelessness in and of itself, it's the optics of homelessness. Trump is embarrassed that world leaders have to see such a thing during lavish state visits, but less embarrassed that he's presiding over a country that doesn't offer them protections, a country that's actively trying to take health insurance away from them, a country that uses our limited resources to prop up corporations that can't manage to pay workers a decent wage, a country that dumps hundreds of millions of dollars into the pockets of military contractors. That's where the money in this country flows, while middle-class Americans are left with crumbs and the poor are left with even less. If given the choice between seeing that kind of leadership and a homeless guy on the streets, I wouldn't have to think too hard about which one embarrasses me more. But here's the craziest part. Tucker Carlson never calls him out on anything. He just sits there and humors Trump as he wheels off on his nonsensical tirade. Would it hurt him so much to simply say, "What do you mean homelessness started 2 years ago?" He can even say, "Sir," add in just enough sycophantism that Trump feels coddled while still doing his duty of calling out, that thing that is completely insane and untrue. But of course, he nods along, absorbing the fairy tale without an ounce of pushback, managing to somehow achieve the Herculean task of decimating any credibility he still had. Seriously, imagine going in front of the entire country on national TV, listening to somebody say something with zero basis in reality like, mixing red and yellow makes purple, and your response is, of course, yes. If Tucker Carlson could feel shame, this could have been a pretty bad day for him. But to give you an idea of just how much of an illegitimate circus this whole Fox News interview between Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump was, here's the very next line, and this should pretty much put everything into perspective.
We have still more of that interview with the president. We asked him later in that hour about UFOs.